Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to this wonderful warm sanctuary on this beautiful but brisk day. My name is Sara Gorham, and hi to all of you out there. My name is Sara Gorham. I am a spiritual practitioner here at Light in the Mountains, and I am thrilled to see every face lighting up this sanctuary. Okay, right into the microphone. And all of you out there, we feel your radiance. So I would like to invite us all at this time to maybe make this transition from the outer exterior world to the world of your heart, and that place where spirit resides and expresses in each and every one of us. Let us center ourselves there in this moment, knowing that the divine is an alive essence and energy within us all. And we know that that essence and energy fills this room as well and connects us all one to each other and to all that is. And we know that presence to be deep peace, to be love, to be abundance, to be the riot of creation, and the energy that binds us one to another within the embrace of all life. And so from that place of knowing, that place of connection, that place of deep love, we give thanks for this morning and all who enter here and all who celebrate with us. I give thanks for our wonderful musicians, Max and Aurel, for all those who do service here by making coffee and volunteering, whether on the board and core council, the practitioners, and most of all for Reverend John himself, who leads us throughout the week and speaks to our hearts this morning. And so from that place of inclusion and celebration, I invite us all to give thanks as we say, and so it is. So this has been our month to do our stewardship campaign, and as such, we talk about abundance this month. Of course, we're talking about, in this case, since it's our stewardship campaign, the material world, but I do just want to, of course, acknowledge that abundance includes everything that gives life its treasure and its meaning. It's an abundance of love and creation and connection, creative expression. So it is not just limited to the material, but this is the month that we acknowledge that, yes, it includes the material, and that is as much an expression of the divine as anything else. So with that in mind, I wrote a little thought on that. We often hear the divine referred to by a number of different names: the divine, spirit, creator, the all that is, universal life force, and of course, God, though we know that can be a trigger word for some people. I have certainly used all those names as I have felt my way forward into the wonder of that miraculous presence. A presence that is both enormous beyond comprehension and simultaneously as intimate and known as my own heart. But the name I am most often drawn to is the word source, because it reminds me of the most fundamental truth of that presence and of my relationship to it. It reminds me that my very essence and being and the body I occupy are all born of that infinite energy and substance, source as me. It reminds me that all of life, the seen and the unseen, the known and the unknown, emerges from that same everywhere presence, ensuring that every one of us is woven into an interrelated web of existence like one enormous mobile, where if one is jiggled, all are affected. And finally, knowing that presence as source reminds me that all supply and sustenance flows from a single origin, miraculously expressed through an infinity of outlets. Let us be reminded that even in our complex, man-made, day-to-day world of global economics, personal accounting, and next week's paycheck, there is still only one source, outpicturing through and as all the complexities we humans have created. We so often make the easy mistake of thinking that our job is our source, or that our bank account is our source, without realizing that these are merely the apertures through which divine source expresses. That source is never limited to any one particular aperture, like a job or a number on a bank statement. It's more like a mobile app. It goes where we go. And true abundance becomes ours when we know and trust that. The only thing that ever separates us from the flow of that unlimited supply is our own limited thinking. Our insistence that we are small and separate and living in a world of scarcity. As we believe that story, we create that story in our experience. But when we know ourselves as one with our source, inseparable from it and part of the flow of its abundant, loving nature and its inexhaustible supply, we are gifted with that lived experience and the peace that flows from that knowing. So let us lean into that knowing. Let us take this moment to feel the web of divine energy that runs through us and that holds us all in the abundance of its love. Let us know ourselves as inseparable from the life around us and the life that lies beyond the limits of our minds. Together, we are woven into a radiant tapestry, a unity that exists in this moment and into infinity. May we give thanks for this, knowing we are one with our source always. So let's just hold that space for a moment and be in that place of knowing. And so it is. And now, I think we have an affirmation for the month that we get to say together that pretty much sums up in one line what I just read. So you'll find it on your insert. It's in red, right about here. And let's say that together. All my needs are abundantly met as I understand that Spirit is my one and only source.
Good morning, John.
Good morning. Thank you, RL. Good morning, everyone. Well, I've had some planned time off and some not planned time off. When there's a little stomach bug floating around the valley, if it's got your name on it, guess what? You stay home. So, and good morning to everyone at home. I just want to acknowledge you all at home. We are in a different world where people are choosing to show up differently. And part of this new world, as we like to think we're on the other side of COVID. We kind of are. What does life look like? What do we do with ourselves? How do we show up? What are our expectations? And certainly as I talk to my colleagues who on Zoom calls that are kind of doing what we're doing, that seems to be the question. What does community look like? What does spiritual community look like? What do our families look like? How are we called to show up differently? How do we let go, in a sense, of how things were? I had a Zoom call this last week with some of my colleagues, and people were finally able to admit that there was a part of them that longs for it to be January of 2020. Things seem so clear. At least this is our fantasy. Things seem so clear. Looking back, we knew what to do. We had it down, and we had our procedures down. And my colleague, of course, this was a few weeks before the whole thing, the world lost its collective mind, seemingly. And we had our programs running just how we wanted them to run. People were coming and just embracing each other in a way that we just cherished and looked forward to each week. And there is that kind of, it's a weird longing, knowing that you can never go back and we can only look forward. And it's asking us to draw from a deeper well. And drawing from a deeper well can be so uncomfortable. When we talk about spirituality and having our lives run by spiritual principle, it sounds so great in theory, doesn't it? It sounds wonderful in theory, and how I'm going to walk that walk that I've been talking about for so long and just, kind of bring it on. But as the world happens and we're in the moment, we do have that feeling sometimes of, oh, could it be the other way, sort of thing. But it can't. And so this is a perfect setup to talk about something I haven't been able to speak much about this month because I haven't been here. Our topic is about abundance. But it's time to, in a sense, go from Abundance 1.0 and start doing our graduate work. And that in itself is scary because it's so nice and easy when you are dealing with anything, and especially with the concepts of abundant on this little kind of introductory scale kind of thing. And we think of abundance, there's so much material around it, not only through New Thought or anything else, or go even to a real bookstore, which often we don't do so much anymore. There's like tons of stuff. And sometimes it's on the spirituality thing, and sometimes it's in the self-help section. But there's tons of material there. And it says, yes, to have a deeper belief of what you are worthy of, and open your receptivity, and we tell ourselves to visualize what we want to have in our lives. And it's a very effective thing to bring things into our lives. But bringing things into our lives for just the sake of having them only fulfills a certain level of, that thing that we seek. Because I think more often than not, we're seeking something so much more. That as human beings, we want sometimes a quick fix. We want to put a label on it, that if I just do this thing or have this one thing come into my life where, a new whatever or a different type of career, we just think, yeah, that's the thing. That will do it. That will just kind of fill that longing that I have right now, that I just can't even put my finger on it or name it. And we allow the thing to come in, and nothing wrong with the thing, whatever it is, but we think, that wasn't it. There's still something that seems to be missing, and of course, when we deal with abundance on that level, we're usually, or more often than not, dealing with abundance on the level of need and lack, and there is something that needs to happen to my life differently. And so, as we say, our thoughts create our existence, and if we're creating from an existence where we feel that something is lacking, that unless we shift to something else, we're always going to be having a sense that we're lacking, that nothing ever completely fills that void, that we have what we think is that amazing moment of something happening, and for that day it is amazing, and there's still, what what's missing there? So there's the graduate level, as I say, of looking at abundance. And what that is to come into such a deep level of trust and knowing that you come to understand that even though, yes, we should name and claim what we want in the physical world, that there is a deeper source that we can draw from to create our lives at a completely different level of understanding. That it's not so much just about filling some of the perceived needs in our life. And again, those things are not unimportant, but that there's a foundation that maybe we have not been paying as much attention to, and that now is the time to do it. So, turn on the news. There appears to be a great deal of need, isn't there? And as human beings, we instantly come up with, well, this is how I think that need can be fulfilled, or this trouble or difficulty or emergency can be solved, and it's normal for humans. We want to solve that. And of course, we're in the process of voting, and that's the ultimate of, this is where I see the solution to be. And again, we all need to vote, and we all need to have an opinions. But still, there's a deeper well that we need to challenge ourselves to draw from. And the well of that Sara talked a bit about, of Spirit, God, the universe as our source of all. But to even have to shift our understanding of what you may think that is. So we often, when we think of a supreme being, or the universe, or spirit, or the divine, any of the terms that we use, we still have a tendency to think of it as something out there, as a parent who is looking after us. And we say source, we think it is something that I go and make a request for, and if I ask nicely, or if I've been a good person, that it will somehow then respond and give me what I ask for. So that's still operating on that level of, I just need things to fill a void at a certain level. But the deeper understanding is to know that this source of creation that we co-create our lives with actually has a bigger idea for us than we do as human beings. That we spin our wheels trying to come up with what is the thing I should be doing or having, and that if we are connected consciously to this source, that this is the source that will help propel us forward, to make sure that we're always at the right place at the right time, and not having always what we think are our perceived needs, but absolutely at all times having exactly what we require. And there can be a difference in that sometimes. I have a whole bunch of stuff I know I need. Go on Amazon, you will see things that you need. But it's amazing how the list of what is required is much less. What is required for you on your journey? That this life is actually a journey of faith where if you put your trust in knowing that the source is with you, that you will always have the right inspiration. You will always, in a sense, know the next indicated step. And what you actually is required will be along the journey. But this is not an easy path to follow. It's much easier in our human minds to micromanage. And I'm also not saying is that we are just passive and allow things to just kind of happen on its own. It's this interesting path of being inspired to know that I have a responsibility to take a step forward and open myself up to do something and be an active participant in this process, and knowing that the things that I require in my life will be there. And for reasons I don't know, that for some people, their requirements actually are to be extremely wealthy for the work that they're doing in the world. And that's just part of their requirements. And for some of us, that's not part of the requirements. And now still we think, I would still like their job to have more of those kind of requirements. And why that happens, I don't know. It's not because they're a better person or we're less better people. It's just part of our journey of being with Source. And taking a journey of trusting in Source as you move forward can be so difficult at times. Because as human beings, as we are understanding, as we look forward, we say that I feel truly inspired and compelled and through my intuitive nature to take a step in this direction, immediately or initially, we may not see anything that we need to be supplied present at that time, which creates a dilemma. But we need to step forward anyway. So the whole point of spiritual practice is to open that intuitive connection, to put our small self, ego self aside, and ask, through this Source, what is the next step of my life? And to check in and know that what is it that I require along the way? And if it's not showing up, to know that you need to take a step back and reevaluate what you think is true. Again, it's Abundance 1.0 was so much easier. It seems so much clearer. All I have to do is envision what this great thing would be, and somehow it's the secret. It just kind of happens, kind of thing. But what's interesting when you start this kind of direction, 1.0 works pretty well, because it's like, let's give you a little bit of recognition that going to another state of consciousness works, but at a certain point, you know that you need to up your game a little bit. And so this is how it has worked for me. And I have found that walking a life in Source is the most frustrating and exasperating thing a person could ever do. It really is. Because what you think you need doesn't seem to be there, but all of a sudden it is when you do. It's the weirdest thing. So in the mid-90s, I had this kind of intuitive hit that this was the kind of work that I was supposed to be doing in the world. And it wasn't a new hit. It actually was something I knew I was supposed to do at 5. And when I shared with a good friend of mine who's been a friend of mine since kindergarten that I was going to go into the ministry, he says, oh God, it's about time. Everybody in grade school just knew you were going to do this. Mm-hmm. So it's about time you got with the program. But here's the thing. This is how it works. So you have this intuitive hit or this idea, bigger idea about yourself. And it's amazing, and it's drawing you, and it says, there's such a connection with this. And then everything shows up that is proof that you cannot do that. Everything that appears to be lacking stares you in the face. And of course, we think, wait a second. What do I do here? Do I wait till I accumulate whatever resources that I need? Do I step forward and put it all on a charge card or something? You know, it's just like, how do I start this path here? And the way you start is that you just start. You just start. So it was really interesting. Of course, before you can go in the School of Ministry, you take several classes in your home center, and then there is about a 2-year process to become a spiritual practitioner like Sara has as well, and Ann has, and Alex has, and it's a long process. And then you are eligible to go to the School of Ministry. And it's a 3-year accredited master's program that at the time, with all said and done, cost about $20,000. I didn't have $20,000. I barely had $20. And so those are one of the real world dilemmas of I feel through the oneness of my Source that this is the direction I'm supposed to go. And everything logically in this physical world tells me there's no way that you can do this. Or there's no way that you can, do this with some finesse and have it kind of flow. And so following that path is your spiritual growth that happens along the way. Because here's the thing, that every path that we all have our own path. The primary purpose of these paths are for us to grow and learn. And some of those lessons, quite frankly, feel like a 2x4 being hit against the side of your head. And as you are, in a sense, seeking to feel a deeper connection and guidance from that source, you may get hit on the head many different times with that 2x4 until you open up and see something a bit differently. That you begin to realize that, oh, some of the ways that I dealt with these apparent road blockages don't work for me. That I have to seek a new way to go through these blockages and to break through. So I knew at that time that money was a big thing for me to work through, habitually. And I also knew that it would be a go-to way to deal with it by just charging the money up on a high-interest credit card, because it was doing God's work here, you know? So somehow God would be my source, and magically a little angel would come down and pay those bills. We actually incorrectly see God as our source playing that role. Nothing magically pays your bills. And so just coming up with my thought process, how can I have a breakthrough here to not go back to old negative behaviors? And how do I step forward, because I'm really clear that this is the direction that I need to go to, and to not see it simply from lack and that there is a gap that needs to fill here before I can move forward. We all face this sort of thing, don't we? Some people, it might be financial things. Other people, it might be support from other people or companionship of how this is going to work, and just thinking, how is this going to be fulfilled? And just through a lot of just spending some time with myself, I came up with the parameters of how this was going to work in the real world. So I told myself, yes, as you go into each term, you can, in a sense, you have got to pay by a credit card anyway. But if that tuition is not paid for by the next term, you have to drop out. Now that ego self tells you, no, but you're doing this thing that you're being drawn to do. Of course you can't even consider dropping out. You'll just kind of let it right over again because, God is your source and it'll happen. But I was intuitively led to, no. If you can't in consciousness figure this out, you do need to drop out for a while until you figure it out. Deeply what that God is my source means, and again, it doesn't mean that your bills get paid magically. It means that you open yourself up to a deeper level of receptivity and see the world and how it works with you in it in a different way. Boy, is that rough. You know it's rough because you've all done it. You have all done it. You realize my tricks in my bag of tricks no longer work. So I need a new bag of tricks. In fact, they never worked before. They always got me into trouble. And Abundance 2.0 or graduate work means that I have to, in a sense, transcend above these things that I took within myself and believed they were true, and they are not. And when I come to terms that they are not, then I open up to something else being true. I never had to drop out. Somehow, it always happened that I had my tuition. And I graduated 3 years later without any student debt. But the lessons still begin. So we think also that we come to a point of arrival, that I've learned a certain lesson. Well, the thing is, if you're living and breathing, you still have more lessons to learn. You don't graduate till whatever happened, so to speak. So again, thinking, well, what is it going to look like once I graduate? It's just like, big job comes happen. Oh, those people want you. Oh, this is great. This is going to happen. You're going to, do this great ministry work. And no, it didn't happen like that for me. In fact, it was so interesting when I did graduate. It was a class of 25. 20 people had positions lined up and were so excited that they were going to do that work that they worked so hard to work towards, and I was one of the 5 that didn't have anything lined up. In fact, the lessons that I had to learn was to completely clear out my life and basically have absolutely nothing from my past and stew in it for a while before I could step up and do what I'm doing. Now, does any of you think when you are following that deeper sense of source and abundance that that's going to be the path? We always think that, oh, I'm going to get what I actually need. And yes, I did. But it was a different route than I had anticipated. So basically, when great moment of graduating, and of course, trying to be nice about within myself, because I was one of the 5 that didn't have a job, within about 7 weeks, everything I had was put into storage, and I moved to Northern California with a friend to live in her and her husband's bedroom for a few weeks to rethink my life, to regroup, because I had no prospects, no job, and no place to live, and I had no idea what to do other than to know that God was my source. And I got to stew in that for 2 years before I showed up here. And boy, was it, talk about a 2x4. Everything I never thought would happen to my life that I would, in a sense, label as negative or bad, happened. Isn't that interesting? We're going to do ministry. Isn't that great work? And we're going to walk in faith, and God is my source, and everything falls away. It didn't sound very sourceful to me at the time, quite frankly. And again, I'm just thinking, so what did I do wrong here? What direction was I supposed to do that I didn't do this here? How in the first time in my life that I didn't have like a lease with my name on it and I'm just hanging out in a friend's bedroom? How did this happen? They didn't cover this in the School of Ministry, actually. That we're going to move forward into ministry somewhere But that period was the most amazing period of my life in many ways. And it was a digging down to know that all these ideas of just trying to manifest and visualize things in your life, that it's nothing compared to knowing that everything that you actually required will be there at all times. And at that time, when I was hanging out at my friends, that's actually all that I was required. And I was challenged to do some pretty deep work. And I liken that now to where we are in the world and as a community. It seems like so much has been taken away, doesn't it? I mean, if you go back 5 years, and if that person was to get in a little time machine and turn on CNN today, they'd be like, is this science fiction? Yeah. How did this happen? What's going on here? Did whole countries blow up as well? I mean, what happened here? So this is what's up for us. In this circumstance, like, I don't kind of get it. I'm not comprehending how this happened here. And it just filters into all of our lives. I think we're all at a loss at a certain point of like, how did this happen? What's going on? I didn't see this coming, sort of thing. And even here as a spiritual community, as we are recreating who we are. And we're not 100% clear of what that's supposed to look like. And there's a part of me and all of us like, well, can we recreate some things from January 2020? And the answer to that is, well, it may look like it, but it's not going to be it. It's going to be different. So we are in a master class in the world of God as our source. That's the only lesson to learn. And to know that it is going to continually be frustrating. It's going to feel like on a certain level that there has been some loss, and there has been great loss on many levels. And it will be a bit like me feeling, being like in my friend's guest room, like, what happened? How did I get here? How do I get out of here? Spirit is our source. The universe is our source. Again, it's not something that gives things to you. It is an energetic level of being that you more consciously plug into and allow to work through you and as you in this point of history that we showed up for to reveal healing at. And I can't tell you what we're supposed to do tomorrow. I can't tell you what we're supposed to do physically in the world next week. Past brunch today, I'm not really sure what the next steps are. But when you are truly dedicated to that uncomfortable fact, because it does feel uncomfortable at times, quite frankly. Let's be honest about it. It's uncomfortable because I want a more clear itinerary. I want to know. I want to know how to solve these things. I want to know how to feel these what appears to be gaps that need to be filled. And the lesson for humans is to just know that Spirit is our source. And that you will know what to do, how to do it, as you need to. In some ways, it's not a real, let's be honest, not a real feel-good kind of thing. Because there's so much uncertainty in it, isn't there? But that's how this works. Look towards the decades of your life in the past. There were times that you didn't think you were going to make it, and you did. As you look back, you can see the perfection of how it worked out for you. How something that showed up that didn't seem to be necessary was exactly what you needed at a certain given moment, and it showed up in time and on time. And looking through the rearview mirror, you can see the absolute perfection and amazing nature of how that happened. And so knowing that Spirit is our source is to use that as evidence that we are operating on that same level now. But when you're in it, it's hard to see. So we just dedicate ourselves to being here. The lesson that I had for those years for coming here was to be fully present, 100% in your life, exactly the way it appears in the moment that you are in. And know that it is no less or more perfect than the last moment or the one that you're going into. And you will be shown the resources to walk through whatever you need to walk through. That's how it works. So let's just take a break here and go within. Let us know that everything we require is right here, right now. We certainly have human wants and needs, and those are great and those are fun, and they will come as they may. But what we require is absolutely here, 100% right now. All is working in perfection right here and right now. Even in the things that confuse us, that confound us, that make us angry, that the source is right there anyway, and we dig in and know that Spirit is our source and it's here. And we allow ourselves to be led one step at a time, knowing that we cannot go into the wrong direction. That we learn individually and collectively the lessons, sometimes easy and sometimes difficult, that we need to learn. We learn them right here and right now. We allow ourselves to be representatives for the awe-inspiring sense of the Spirit and the divine right where we are. And it's okay not to humanly know, but we know something within us does. So we just step forward. Everything that's required is here, and that's all we need to know. So for this, we give thanks. We give thanks basically for that which we cannot see. And as we give thanks for this, we release our attachments to what was. We release our attachments to how we think it should be now and how it should be tomorrow. And we just let it go. We allow ourselves to be vessels of spirit and as emissaries in the world. And so it is.